everybody.
Hello.
Welcome to Monday Night Live in Lexington, you guys. We're here for episode or series Electric Universe episode 11, right? With Shifu Careaga.
11-11.
11-11. This is going to be so much fun tonight because we're bringing you the extended plasma electromagnetic cosmology papers that you finally got done.
Not done, but I've gotten a lot of them, and I put them up on.
This is done to me.
Close enough.
Yes.
So there are like 6 of them now up on academia.edu.
Which we'll leave the
also,
link in the comments after the show.
And there's also up on EU Gateway. The nice thing about the EU Gateway is that they're embedded, and so anytime I make a change, which I probably won't make changes to these ones, but anytime I make a change, it shows up immediately there as an embed. Whereas anything on academia.edu, it's a PDF, so if I make an update, I have to re-update.
Right, and so you would have to wait to see those updates, but if you go to the link, you'll be able to see the updates in real time.
Right.
Yes, and that's what's exciting. Let's do a couple of shout-outs here. Hey to Rolando and Barbara, George McKinney, Lauren, Melissa, Ricky, Arthea, Janet, and let's see, Felicia. Thanks for joining us this evening. And a special shout out over here on Instagram to Creep Baby Jane, one of my favorite people in the whole world. Big kiss. And let's see, over here on Facebook, shout out to John Philip Young. Thanks for tuning in. Paige Denise, Kathy Warner, and Julia Kander. For those of you guys on the professional page, Catherine Kaufman, Psychic Medium TV, I won't be able to see your comments on that page. If you want to join the live chat, hop over here to the personal page at Catherine Kaufman, and you can join in the live chat. Otherwise, you can hang out there and just watch the show. So, tell us.
What is the EPMC?
Yes. What is it?
Well, okay, so you've got the electromagnetic part, right? That's pretty straightforward. And then you've got the plasma part. So this goes back to, harkens back to plasma cosmology. Bear in mind that the electric universe people and the plasma cosmology people don't see eye to eye on everything. A lot of the things that Dave Talbot talks about that we'll go over in the Saturn myth next time are not things that are endorsed by Anthony Peratt, right? He's not allowed by his peers at Los Alamos Labs to really look at things differently. So the whole reason for the extended part was I started to do a reduction. As you know, in the Mist of Time group, I had looked at aliens, Atlantis, and the electric universe, and really this process that we've been doing all together, distilling and culminating, and then just boom, it just started pouring out in the On the Origins of Religions paper. And
so all these papers are on the Electric Universe Gateway.
They are on the Gateway, and the value of having the EU Gateway ones, aside from them being up to date, is the links are probably a little bit more trustable, whereas sometimes PDFs can mess up when they export. But basically, there's tons of links. The thing about hey, hon, the thing about these links and about like the On the Origins. Okay, let's look at it. I'm gonna show people now. I paid money to get these all printed out because they're thick. Okay, and they're in booklet form, so each one is an even number of pages. Yeah, so they could download and make booklets of these. And so the big selling point of this one is all of the diagrams that
which are really nice. I mean, the print quality is really good, and I can see that on the
and you know, of course, just religious symbol after religious symbol going through. And I'm sure that you guys are going to recognize them as they flash by. And again, you know, here we got what, 229 citations. So they're clickable. But in the beginning of this paper, closer towards the front, there's this large section. Look at this table. So this part 2, the analysis of the model, right? We're now analyzing EPMC because the EPMC is a paper which is also available, but it's a white paper.
Mm-hmm.
So I haven't filled it up with links yet. So what I did with this was I put those links. And so in the paper, you can click this link and it'll take you right where the evidence is.
Okay, that's good.
And that could be articles, it could be videos, it could be all sorts of stuff. That's why there are so many in here, and there are a lot of footnotes here.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was very thorough about it. This one only ended up being 48 pages. At the time, it seemed like a lot to me, but
there's so much more on the gateway.
Very much more, and also in the other papers. Now, I'm doing currently the Our Magnetic Universe. But the reason I started with On the Origins of Religion is it's incredibly important. The more I go, the more I see the importance. You know the song that was playing when I came here?
Mm-hmm.
Billy Joel, We Didn't Start the Fire. That's true. We didn't start the fire. It's always been burning since the world's been turning.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's only been turning since the end, or it's only been burning since the end of when Saturn was turning. So,
yeah.
You know, at the end of Zep-Tepi, that's when the world caught fire, and what has happened to humanity and why we're, you know, why everything is so complex. It's not even simplex anymore. It's very complex.
It is.
Is that what we experienced going from a period where, you know, you worshipped, you knew exactly who mother and father were in the sky, and you knew where these four winds, these four jets that come out. The symbol that's here on this Templar ring, the Celtic symbol, okay, goes all the way back to goes all the way back to the period of when there were actual four winds, and these jets actually came outwards, and it was recounted around the world. And it's not like it was just Romans or just Celts or just Egyptians. I mean, it was here with the Native Americans, and they all agreed worldwide that these energies were flowing out of the center, and then the wheel fell.
Mm-hmm.
And when the wheel fell off, there was a strong desire to come back to a balance, and they would, you know, they tried to use monarchs, and they also worshiped the next planet in line, you know, the next planet in line, and they created new and more fanciful religions. And eventually, and what I cover in the paper is that this led to the religious era. Mm-hmm. Which we're talking, you know, like 2600s, like the beginnings, basically the Hebrew period forward, until the scientific period.
Right.
And that kind of coincides with our astrological ages. So a lot of the religious period was contained in the age of Pisces. However, it obviously started before that. But yet we're still stuck in the age of Aries.
Well,
ultimately.
I think there's part of the population, and this has been since the beginning of time, there's part of the people that are explorers, and they don't mind that it is uncertain. And then there's part of us that want things set, stable, grounded, and we know where we are, and we know what's around us. So this is kind of taking us into areas we may not be comfortable with, but we're making leaps and bounds in this discovery.
On top of that, it does get a little dicey because, and I don't ever try to offend, like if someone has a really strong Christian belief system, there's no way I want to offend them. I mean, if I say the Christ story goes all the way back to 2400 years BC in Egypt, and that's not too offensive.
Mm-hmm.
But if I start talking about who Enlil and Enki and goes right back to El and the Elohim, a lot of people, they want there to be giants, not just big people, but giants.
Right.
So the mainstream and alternative people can both be offended by this kind of research, because when you go back in time, what you end up finding out is Saturn, the body of the god, was also other gods. They were little giants. It was the pantheon of planets and moons around Saturn. That's what the research is indicating. Now, I'm not saying that means that there were never ancient aliens and that there were never super huge giants.
We just haven't gotten out to that point yet, I think.
Maybe. But now, if there were, guess what? Plasma, you know, the Hejim theory, which we'll get to, and the electrothermal vine will explain why they could grow that big.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Let's see if there's any questions. Shout out to Arwen. Hey,
Man.
Pamela, Cindy, Yasmin, Matt, Jennifer, Kathy, Susan, Taya, Chastity, and Lou. If you guys have any questions that you would like to ask, just type them in the comment
anytime.
section on my personal page. And hey, over here to you guys on Instagram, John, Anaton, and Jess Madden. So any questions, comment section, please.
So the other extended part is not just talking about this astrology stuff, which there is a separate paper. I didn't print it out. It's called Signs Analysis. The astrological signs show these movements, and they tell us when these movements happened, and so that's in the paper. Signs Analysis. But the extended part is about catastrophism and diffusionism, and also I'm not one of those guys that throws the baby out with the bathwater. In the Hijin theory, the hollow, expanding, growing electromagnetic Earth, plate tectonics is okay.
Yeah.
Right? We don't have to combat. I mean, plate tectonics is happening.
It's merging.
Okay. Blot echoes are happening under subduction zones. However, it's also true that there's not enough subduction zone to cover the rift valley, because you've got 64,000 kilometers of rift around the Earth. It really does look like it was cracked in half, but it actually, what I postulate in the plasma electromagnetic sky paper is what I call the electrothermal vine. So we'll do that in a second too. I want to mention a couple things, other things on the origins of religions. I've got the periods. So one other thing I've done is I've extended back and provided a framework. So this is kind of a Shock, Collins, Hancock-esque, John Anthony West, who, rest in peace. I've extended it back. I'm assuming that it can be true. Why? Because it gives us time to explain things. Right? If you want to have an Atlantis, you need a time period. So between Bosnia and Younger Dryas, plenty of time. 24,000 years. You don't need aliens to do that. Now, if there are aliens, there are aliens. I can't prove that there are aliens.
We might be the aliens.
As far as I can tell, we are. Okay. Then the second thing that I did in here, or second of three, is there's a table of the gods. Okay, so and there's citations. You see most of the pages citations.
There's a lot of good information in this.
Yes, this is for you guys. This is not just joking around. This is like serious, research here. And then the third thing is I made a table that has the dates and the times extended. And as you can see, you think about, people think that the Inca were something, like super ancient or special. I mean, here they are.
They're way up there.
Yeah, they're this little blip right there. So they're like nothing compared to what you're seeing over here with these, like Gunung Padang was an operational pyramid for almost 20,000 years.
Jeez.
That we know of. There could have also been essentially what you would say animists who had no idea of the ancient science, the sacred geometry. And if you're interested in the sacred geometry, I definitely recommend Randall Carlson's stuff. Because he breaks it down. Guys, I used to be one of those that thought we should get rid of the standard system and go all metric, everything metric, because it makes sense based on 10, blah, blah, blah. We should not get rid of, because there is sacred geometry embedded in the English standard system, okay?
Wow.
Right, so it's really important that we keep that. I didn't either, okay? His DVD is not very expensive, and usually there's a discount. You just search, Sacred Geometry DVD.
Speaking of which, I have to say this.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to make a little black coffin with dark matter on it. to float across the screen.
They've made up some new ones because they can't find them, and there's new videos. And I know you're following Suspicious Observers now.
Yes.
There's new constraints on dark matter, so they're just making up new ones.
I know.
They don't know. They don't know how to. My favorite was when they couldn't find it in the whole galaxy. They said it's not there, so it must be real because it's not there. I'm going.
What?
That's not a thing. You can't do that. That's actually a fallacy, right?
Yes.
Absence of proof is not proof at all.
It's not proof at all.
It's not proof of absence. It's not proof. It's absence of proof is nothing.
We follow a YouTube channel called Suspicious Observer.
Ben Davidson.
And I have put a couple of links on my timeline the last 48 hours, I guess, on certain things that I was interested in. And when we get done with the show, I'll go ahead and link you to Shifu's YouTube and Suspicious Observers, because it's a really good thing to keep track of.
Yeah, for sure. The immediate thing that came out of that On the Origins paper was I did investments in Ragnarok just before Avengers Infinity War
Now, I
came
have to
out.
stop you there
Yeah, go ahead.
because there's always new viewers joining, and
Sure.
there's a populace that do not know what you mean when you say Ragnarok.
Ragnarok. So Ragnarok is the cycle of world ending, and
Cycle of destruction.
Cycle of destruction, and specifically the War of the Gods. And in the next one, Hodor and Balder are supposed to come back, and Thor and Odin and Loki are supposed to die. It all has to do with planets. Every bit of it, 100%. Now those traditions in the Edda are newer, and people should subscribe to Peter Jackson. He's an Old Norse specialist. All these traditions are Christian era, although it's a lot of pagan beliefs. But they are, of course, oral traditions. The reason they were written down finally is they had been inherited and they were going to be lost otherwise. That's exactly why they wrote it down.
Yeah.
So it's really important. So, but I did the paper on how much money we're spending on end of the world media and on world-ending weapons, on nukes.
There's always something
it's very
on
scary.
that. Always something on that.
Huge. There's always money being spent on. And it's like Star Wars, we've talked about before, the Death Star being Venus, the morning star, the evening star. It actually shoots plasma that ends worlds. Okay, you can't make this stuff up. Thanos taking away half of, spoiler alert, taking away half of the lives. Well, it was a lot more than that, believe it or not, right? We're talking, it really did get down to, a man and a woman on one mountain. And then, luckily there were lots of these mountains, but it got very sparse.
But it's fascinating because a lot of the stuff in science fiction, especially from, back in the 1960s and 70s, is now being proven as scientific theory.
Yes.
And that's kind of scary because I'm looking at scientific or science fiction now and going, oh my, is that gonna... You
can also say that a lot of things that all fail. If they succeed, it's because there's a niche audience that's interested. If they fail and they're like one of these large stories, it's because they don't conform to the Campbell-esque outline, which is actually a human story outline. It's something, maybe it's soul memory, maybe it's cultural memory. I know this, at the Avengers Infinity War, there were tons of kids. So they're all learning about the Mad Titan, and they're all learning about Thor, and they're all learning about these destructions and these events. And they're all plasma electromagnetic related. There's no way of getting away from that.
Right.
So from the investments in Ragnarok, and if you want to see scary numbers, just look at how much money we've spent on just the U.S. nuke program. I think I came to about, at current population levels, enough, if every family ate $50,000 a year of food, enough to feed the current world population for 78 years, since 1940. That's what inflation will allow you to do, right?
Yeah.
Because you're inventing.
Yeah.
And that's just the U.S. expenditure. And it's the vast majority of expenditure on end-of-world stuff. But end-of-world media also is very large, big business. So from there, I ended up going into Atlantis and finally bringing together. Now, I'd picked up Atlantis stuff for years and years and years.
Everybody's curious about it.
I didn't know that I knew so much until I started, really writing. And so this paper, Unboxing Atlantis, of course, the title meaning taking it out of the box from the way that people want to talk about it or have talked about it, also allowing us to talk about it as scientific. And I stepped through why it's scientific, because there are so many places that have uncovered. And I go over, Sunderland, I go over Doggerland, I go over all of the possibilities. If you want to know the names of the subcontinents. Now, to draw your attention to some of the things that are in here, first of all, this is the first table that describes the Hajime theory and how the mechanism. Now, we talked about it on here. We used the orange and.
Do you remember what episode that was?
I'd like to say 7 or 8.
Okay.
Probably 8, I think.
Yeah.
And how crustal collapse could happen.
Right. That's when we use the orange.
Right. Now, in here, I want to make clear that when I say hollow, I don't mean hollow. I don't mean like the moon rings like a bell hollow. I mean that it's not an iron core. That's what I mean. And so it's not the hollow earth theory, TM. it's a hollower Earth than what they've proposed.
It's deep water, right?
It's water, yeah. It's some kind of chemical-filled water. There's obviously sulfur. There's obviously all sorts of acids, and of course molten rock, and it's convecting. And this convection process is interacting with stellar. In fact, I was just watching last night about Cygnus, and there's a pulsar there that basically every almost 5 hours beams us with a very steady, repeated electrical pulse. And there is some evidence, I don't know how much, but there's some evidence that Andrew Collins has in his new book called The Cygnus Conspiracy, the Cygnus Myth, or something like that. It's his new one, and you subscribe to Megalithomania UK. That's where the talk is.
Okay.
And Andrew Collins talks about that there's changes that may be coming because of these cosmic rays hitting us. These neutrons. And if you go into a cave and you get in there for a long period of time, and your eyes are dark, you will see flashes of light. Sometimes those are spirits, and sometimes they're memories, and sometimes there's this and that, but sometimes they're cosmic rays.
Right.
And they know this from space, from astronauts going into space. So, anyways, I go into the stellar Earth circuit. So we're talking about the expanding and growing
Earth. Question on Instagram.
Oh yeah, go ahead. How thick is the Earth's crust? What's the deepest hole? So the Earth's crust I think it's about 27,000 miles. And we've only gone, I think, about 2/3 of the way. They're starting up a new program to do it. It's going to be a huge waste of money, but
why do you say that?
well, because they won't be able to succeed in it because of the way that everything keeps shifting. It'll probably get sheared, but there is a huge deep hole in Russia still where they tried really hard, and now that one's still only like the 4th deepest in the world. Why so do I think that it will get sheared? I think it'll as the crusts, because in this theory of Hejim, as the vine grows the Earth, it doesn't just expand; it's growing in physical mass. We know this because gravity has changed. Now, there's a theory that maybe the gravity changed because if you do the calculations on spherical geometry,
and the Earth's expanding.
As it expands, then if that gets thinner, then the gravity moves, in a certain way, and that's why the dinosaurs, But to resolve the expanding and growing Earth people to come together, you can have both. You can have an expansion and you can have growth. And the reason we know it has to be growing is because there is constantly what I call energy mass bombarding the Earth, and it's not all getting out. Right? So it's going in and it's not all getting out. So the electrothermal vine, if you can picture a tomato, what happens towards the end of a tomato's life? If you don't pick it off that vine, it starts splitting. Yeah. Right. It gets red and it grows faster, actually. Well, I think that's what has happened with the Earth, is that it happened really quickly. And in fact, I think it's...
What about Mel's Hole?
Mel's Hole. I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with Mel's Hole. You should definitely put a link on there and I'll take a look at it.
Mel's Hole.
And read about the astronauts experiencing flashlights. Yeah. Yes. Yes,
neutron bursts in outer space, and then the channel that we were talking about on YouTube does go into cosmic ray and how it affects the human body.
Yes.
And it's really
mutations, all sorts of
really good to watch, and
could change our consciousness.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine us evolving because the stars are talking to us.
But that would be good, I think.
Yeah. Well, it could be, and who knows, right? So frequency dependent, I'm sure. And probably. I mean, we are designed to follow the Schumann resonance of the Earth.
Thank you.
Thanks. So aside from that, there are a number of other things. Of course, I have, more color images. So in here, in table 2, I have your upthrust values. Okay, this all comes from when the Earth nearly died. So take a look at, since the last 11,000 years, one of my favorite ones here, the Andes, 4 kilometers at Titicaca. That's a massive amount of upthrust. Now, there's also down thrust in other places. Here we got the Anti-Atlas Mountains, 2 to 3 miles down thrusting. Greenland and Norway, 2.75 kilometers. Japan and Indochina, 300 feet. The Gobi Desert, 600 to 900 meters. the Ganges has 2 kilometers of fill in the river. So there are these massive changes that have been happening in the last, just since the Younger Dryas, right? This post Younger Dryas. So was it a massive event? I remember that I postulate that the moon, because that's what the natives say, right? That the moon passed close, caused the first world floods. Okay, we're not talking about the deluge, but the Great Flood. So this Great Flood was essentially massive tsunamis.
So let me ask you a question. This is probably off topic, but why is the moon distancing itself?
Well, it probably came in a little hot, and then it, there was some electrical interchange, and then it's still electrically it's in what they call tidal lock. However, that momentum is still there, so it's slowly inching away. That angular momentum,
it's just attenuating.
Right, it's just continuing the process. But you can see, its pathway is very, very haphazard overall. So it still hasn't combined. In fact, in this unboxing Atlantis, I propose a direction that it had come in and swooped by us 3 times and caused these desert belts. But no one can know for sure until the point is, first you look at things possibly, you open up the possibilities, then you do some more science and you see, does that work? Because what they have proposed has not really fit the bill. If you ignore data, then you can't know the total truth. You can get a small snippet of the truth.
Well, this is just the beginning of it.
Yeah,
I think this is just going to blow apart, and we're just going to be amazed.
Remember we had talked about the different crustal hotspots? I have in here a diagram of all the hotspots. So, everybody's familiar with Hawaii. Hawaii's big in the news right now.
Oh my gosh. And half of the stuff that's going on in Hawaii is not being reported.
Right. And it's just getting warmed up, okay? But all these different hotspots, they really represent convection of very hot molten magma inside the chamber, and it's being electromagnetically driven, and then after it lifts something up, once it cools, it can collapse down, and that can happen. And I think it happened at the Azores. Okay, personally, in the paper I don't say it's the Azores, guys, but I'm going to tell you it's the best candidate by far. First of all, it's the size. That's the Azores. I'm sorry, that's the Azores, and I think I have. All right, so that's the Azores, and there's still. Some of the islands are above water, but the vast majority have sank down. Look at this rift that's in the Caribbean. That's monstrous.
Yes, it's huge.
That doesn't look like standard tectonic. That looks like the planet Tor.
Yeah.
Or something scraped it. One of the two.
These are satellite pictures.
Right.
So that is absolutely. Show me this one.
Now this is a conjecture, okay? Bear in mind. So Nat Geo might be in the science business, but they're still guessing, right? This is all that Spain. But I want you to see how much. See all that orange and brown. That was at the Younger Dryas. That was all above water. Look at this. The entire Black Sea there.
Yeah.
So we have a real problem of locating Atlantis because we tend to want to put it in a box, and the reality is there were all sorts of things that were all sorts of places that could be. I even go over Amazonia because of the way the Amazon's so low. If you have one of these mega tsunamis, and what we're seeing, all these earthworks coming up because there were cultures there. There could have been millions of people. Yeah. Millions of people.
Yeah.
Yeah, Guatemala is happening right now. Absolutely.
Right now, Arthea.
So again, these papers are,
right.
and they're all cited. Okay, hundreds and hundreds of citations and links for you guys.
Right. So if you want to know more, all you have to do is click on this citation.
And I ended the paper with an appendix on the megaliths. You hear always about how the oldest megaliths are always the biggest and stuff. That's not true. Okay. And I've got the data here, and you can look and you can see on the back page, on the last page, I break it down. This one that's out of crazy here. This is a Chinese one. That's actually more modern megalith, and it was so big that they couldn't even detach it or do anything with it. How did they move it? How they move these? I have no idea. But I'm just saying, Göbekli Tepe. These are the top 50. Göbekli Tepe's all the way down here.
Dang.
Right. So, but you look at those 6 large stones in Peru. they're pretty big, 100 tons. They're down here, so it's not always. Some of them are modern things. You know, some of these obelisks. Obviously, though, when you talk about Baalbek top, it's way up there.
Yeah.
And it is quite a mystery. And I still recommend that people see Peter Mungo Jupp's Catastrophes DVDs. I think it's volume 4 is the one on Baalbek. You know, and that volume 4 and 5 are just amazing, all about the tsunami.
Okay.
I had seen that, the super full moon. So that would be the idea again. When you have these celestial bodies, they're transforming electromagnetism, cosmic rays. It's hitting the Earth, and then the Earth has kind of a growth spurt. And it's very, very quick kind of motion. I don't know if people have seen the subduction video footage from the tsunami.
I haven't.
So what it looks like. So first of all, subduction looks like this. When it goes underneath, it bends things down, and then it pops up like that. Okay. Well, that pop up that happened there in Japan, it was, I think it lifted probably 100 feet all at once. The tsunami that was uplifted, it went out equally in both directions. It just happened to go also there, went out circularly, and it happened really quick. So how did it suddenly decide to have that lift? It has to have a precipitating factor,
right?
These earth spots. And the earth spots are covered in the plasma electromagnetic sky. Now they're
and that's
better
on
covered.
The gateway.
Right. All of these are on the gateway.
Everything's
and
on the gateway.
Okay. So you can go to academia.edu and you can search my name, Careaga, and you can start finding these papers. So the plasma electromagnetic sky picks up from because the table in here that explains Hajime theory is kind of like a summary table of how Hajime works. Whereas PIMS is the complete description of this. It doesn't have all the magnetism because that's the paper I'm writing now.
Right.
But it has the entire relationship. And what I need people to do is cast aside their Newtonian, the training that they've been given about billiard balls. Okay, you can use it in day-to-day life. You can use it. Yeah, you know, if you get in a car wreck and you want to prove that the person was at fault, you can use Newtonian mechanics and you can calculate that. Bear in mind, though, that Newtonian mechanics in general is a special case. The reality of what's happening is that we have these spheres that go from the core of the Earth all the way out into the interaction in the plasma sphere. And at each level, there are different charge. I want you to think about something. How often do you see in nature solid immediately turn to gas without any precipitating manner? That's usually a special case. But on the Earth, it is the normalcy where we live, at least for us, and everything is relative to us, and that's what makes it hard for us to study because we assume things. We assume the electricity is ground is zero. It's only zero here on Earth, right? And we assume for a long time that we were the center of things and that we weren't moving, but that's not how it's really happening. So the special case I call the membranic layer. Right, the crust is at the, and we're on top of the crust. So we're on top of the membranic layer. We are essentially at the boundary of solids and gases interacting in a chemical volatile soup.
Right.
And under the conditions where you have electromagnetic forces coming down and electromagnetic forces coming up,
right,
and they're convecting towards each other and then interacting and repelling or mingling,
or creating
just like yin and yang, that's where you will find the conditions for creating life. If those conditions exist, if there are enough plasma shells, there will be life. So it's not so much that that Mars is too far away or that Venus is too close, it's that they don't have enough layers.
Right.
They need a certain number of layers. Your body has a number of layers. You need different layers to protect. In Chinese medicine, we say that you have 3 layers of defense qi, not just one, right? You need the one above the skin, you need the one just around here, and then you need the one to keep you at the right distance. This is because otherwise it's kind of weird. It's just kind of, it makes you feel weird. And that's an interaction. Why does it make you feel weird? Because your electromagnetic fields are interacting with my electromagnetic fields, and it's sending signals. And these signals are sort of how the universe is organizing itself. These plasma shells, I call them the spheres of heaven and the spheres of earth, and they are where energy is happening all the way from the core to the sun. And then I introduced also the different circuits. So the solar system circuit, the galactic electric circuit, which would include the super galactic electric circuit. So like Laniakea.
So I
really
want you
great
to
videos
do
in
a
here.
paper on X-point portals.
I mean, the thing is that we don't know enough about these magnetic portals to really be able to say, here's an example of the plasma layers that form. That's from Project
pretty
Sapphire.
Cool. Yeah.
Okay. We don't know, you know, like take these these sprites and blue jets and things that are happening in our upper atmosphere. They first got video of this in 1992. You know, so we just don't know. We don't really truly know how powerful they are. I'm doing the research now.
Oh wow! Look at that.
Yeah, so that's Laniakea, and that's our super cluster. That's what I was looking for. So that is demonstrating. Look at the polar configuration forming between Laniakea and, Laniakea is over here, and the Perseus supercluster, and these are our superclusters. This is, of course, the weakening electromagnetic field around, and it's above the South America. So, you know, things are shifting, and they're always interacting, right? Everything's always, and they use gravity right now for this great attractor, but the reality is it's actually plasma flow. It's electroplasma. So I have a lot of diagrams in here about that, and I talk about Markland convection, and I talk about, you know, the different, the transformer Earth. You know, there's the diagrams of the plates and how the plates on the planet are shifting direction. Right? They told you that it's all Pangea theory, but the thing is, Pangea is dead.
Yeah.
Right? That theory doesn't work anymore.
It's right there with dark matter in the coffin.
They're not going to admit that one for a long time, though. Here's the electrothermal vine. You know, so you've got energy coming from the sun, and it's going around and going into the poles, and then I propose some chemistry. And then opposite, you know, here's some chemistry that was observed in the lab in Sapphire. So, you know, fusion happening in the orbs as they're doing the experiments, and that's not a nuclear reactor.
Right.
That's just a plasma
This is
ball.
the commingling of the energy.
Yeah, this is the commingling of the magnetic poles, right? And then you can see up here the flux, what they call the magnetic flux ropes, which are, of course, Birkeland currents.
Right.
They go together because they're 90 degrees out of phase.
Episode.
Right. Those go together. They're just 90 degrees out of phase. That's what all the research is showing, is that they're flowing not perpendicular to each other, but right over top of each other. The electric current and the magnetism go together.
They do.
And there's plenty of diagrams here of different nebulas. There's one that works like an electric motor. It spins like an electric motor. It's a giant motor, obviously. It's really huge. This is one of my favorite tables that I made. This one, I take the number of satellites and around the biggest bodies and the gas planets, and then us. We're one, right? Because we have the one big moon. There are some little ones that they don't count because we'll lose them. So you have the one big moon, and you divide that by the Earth mass, and you get 100%. Look at the ratios. Everything in the gas planets is always, you know, in some kind of, you know, in between 16 and 200%. The sun is at 0.0006%, which means it must be a latecomer to the solar system. There's no way of interpreting that any other way. So far, they've said, well, it just pushed everything away. Accretion must have happened further away. It turns out that's wrong, based on TRAPPIST-1, that actually it needs to happen closer. So you'll hear this more and more. They don't know why the rocky bodies are happening closer to the sun. Now, we all know, because we've been doing the research, and our ancestors, your ancestors, I don't care what race you are, what religion you are, your ancestors knew and recorded about these things and these events of the planets breaking up.
But that's a fortunate thing for us today to try to.
Well, the internet allows us to do it. When everything was held as different disciplines, you couldn't do it because you weren't allowed. If you were a myelonologist and you touch Egyptology, they'd rip you apart, right? Yeah. So, you know, I have, again, the diagrams. I have the different layers, the spheres, and I conclude comparing it with Taoism, basically. And then I did some things in this paper. I introduced a glossary of terms for you guys, physics stuff.
That's good.
Yeah, it's pretty useful. And then also there are, what I also introduced is a section of the known physical laws. But I around thermodynamics, motion, gravity, and electromagnetism, I have attached the laws of energy and the laws of life.
That's awesome.
Yes, and so that people can understand what's going on. They will get referred to in the different papers. There's some more tables and some more citations.
We need to, and this is all free for you guys.
It's all free. I did it for you guys.
Because
I did it for fun too.
The science is moving towards this, so we have to really try to understand this and kind of wrap our mind around it and go with the flow now. Let's see.
Yeah, Sandra, I agree. You know, that's why I made the papers, because if I just talk about it on the show, it's going to be hard for you to really get it. With color pictures and links and citations, you are armed now. In the new paper, for example, and we've heard for years there's no electrical current in space. I did one table, and out of that one table, I got 20 citations of measurements of electric current in space from the last 40, 50 years. They've been doing it since the 1940s.
Yeah.
But they've been telling us that there's no electricity in space, and yet plasma physicists have been measuring current in space. And what's interesting is the table works exactly the right way. The galactic electric circuits have the highest orders of magnitude. The SSC has the next orders of magnitude. The Hajim and the PIMS. Well, PIMS is next, and then the Hajim, and then of course our level, nerves, heart. You wouldn't believe how hard it is to find stuff on heart. They've got tons of research papers on how to use voltage to kill people, but measuring what's actually in the Purkinje fibers is very difficult.
Yeah.
All I could find was frog nerve impulse in the heart. But all the way down to a plant, I cited how much electricity is flowing in a plant. And again, a link so you can go watch that video there so that you can do that study for yourself. But with that table, you can show somebody and go, here you go, here's how much current is actually flowing. And some of them are hard, like the sprites is so new. They can tell you how many protons and photons are moving, but they couldn't tell you what the amps are.
Right.
And it's hard because it is spreading out. I mean, they're huge. Some of these are like anvil crawler lightning. You know, it's very difficult for us to measure that kind of thing. We're kind of guessing as to how much actual power. But based on the power scales, you know, it would have to be above. So if electricity, or if lightning's at 600,000 amps or so, I'm sorry, it was at like 300,000 amps, then it would probably be in the order of 1 million to 2 million to 10 million. I mean, amps, somewhere in that range. I mean, you could. I'm going to plot it out, and you probably could just stick it in there and go, "This is the reasonable level."
More work for yourself.
Well, I don't mind that. In fact, for our Saturn myth, you know what I have to do for that one?
So we're gonna go over Saturn myth next month.
Oh, it's gonna be.
We have to wrap up.
Yeah, I know. It's gonna be great. I'm gonna create a spreadsheet for you guys, and it's gonna be all these different cultures. Every time he makes a reference to the culture and the name. So if it's some weird foreign name from some ancient culture that's dead, it's gonna be in there for the one God. Okay. Yeah. All right. Now I'm not saying that there's no, you know, Jehovah. I'm not saying any of that, guys. But what I am saying is that there is a proven myth. And there is research, and Dave Talbot has done this. It's sad that his book just didn't really, it wasn't a Velikovsky-like hit.
Yeah.
You can still get it on stickmanonstone.com. It's a little expensive. I think it's like $60 or so, but it's big.
For those people that really want
this
research, it would be worth it.
Oh, it's amazing. And like I said, I'm going to summarize, you know, with the names and things, and so all that will be there for people. And the next papers, I mean, I've got one I'm doing on Ferris wheels, and also the handbag glyph.
Oh.
But I got to finish our magnetic universe, and also we're doing at Blue Lotus the phase 3 of the electric experiment.
Yeah.
I started. Yeah, it's very rigorous, but I'm excited about it because phase 1 and 2 went so well, and that will be typed up into a paper. That one I will submit to JAMA. Along with the meds.
And that'll be
papers.
awesome. So we're going to wrap up for tonight. Remember that next month we're going to go over Saturn myth. We're going to delve into that.
It's not to be missed. I tell you what.
Not to be missed at all. To find out more about these shows, I want you to mark C first on my pages for notifications for Facebook. And when I put the YouTube link down, subscribe and share the Electric Universe video.
And hit the notification bell for Catherine's channel, because otherwise you might not get the notifications. I get every notification.
Right. And I will put a link for Shifu's channel as well, because, you know, He uploads videos on all the latest stuff that he's getting into and thinking about, and
or videos of waterfalls. Glad you liked
the waterfalls and
Glad you
stuff.
liked the waterfalls.
So remember, sharing is
You're welcome,
caring. Go ahead and hit that share button right now before we sign out so that you can share this with all your friends. And remember, we're exploring what and who we are on this journey through life. So thanks for tuning in, guys.
Thank you very much.
Kisses
Guys.
from
Thanks,
Kentucky.
George.
I'm going to let you take care of
All right.
Instagram, and I will
Bye,
sign
guys.
out here. Bye, guys.